You probably can't hear very well over that music, can you?
Nope.
Well, hi guys. Craig with Ram Real Estate and Mortgage. Once again, we're bringing some exciting stuff today in regards to real estate and mortgage. Our whole purpose is to educate, motivate, and inspire people in all things real estate. Today, I do have a pretty special guest. She's been in the title industry for about 2 years. I'm kidding. She's been in the industry for an awful long time. She and I have been in the industry combined together probably over 50 years, I would assume. But without further ado, Jess, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me, Craig. I'm super excited to be here. I am a title geek at heart. So I love talking about the title industry and home ownership and all that fun stuff. I definitely don't know the sites that you handle, and that's why I look to you as that expertise. But I'd like to say I know a thing or two about titles. I've actually been doing this. I've been in the industry. It'll be 34 years in April.
Jeez. So we're
Crazy.
about the same. So we've
Yeah.
almost got 70 years. And let's just be honest, we don't look that old, okay? Let's just throw it out there. We don't look that old.
Yeah. I mean, I just turned 34, so I don't know how all this works.
Well, you say you're a title geek. Now, and here's a misconception. A lot of times where, in real estate or mortgage, there's title insurance. And I think for the most part, people just understand that, hey, there's title insurance that's involved with it. But I truly don't think everybody understands what that means or why it's important. So let's kind of break that down a little bit for them. First off, obviously, in a real estate transaction, we go out and get someone under contract. The mortgage person is involved. They get a pre-approval and everything like that. The minute it goes under contract, we're obviously reaching out to a title agency. And the reason being is we're trying to do what? Why do we reach out to a title agency for title on a file?
A lot of people get title insurance confused with your homeowners, your hazard insurance
For
that you
sure.
pay. And they think, is there a need for that? What do I need? Well, what title insurance is, it's different from any other type of insurance where, in medical policy, an automobile policy, it actually takes kind of a pooling of risk, those policies, and they set a premium at that's what might this could happen. They could get in a car accident down the road or they could get sick. And so that's how they set those premiums based off of age or whatever. What title insurance does is we're risk elimination. So we don't assess risk or assume risk, we're eliminating that risk, and that's what that title insurance
Hmm.
policy is
So you're
eliminating
eliminating
any.
risk.
Yes.
So
So
what risks do you what risks do you mean? I'm just buying a house.
just buying a house, and you think there's no risk involved, nobody's holding a gun to my head, and I'm not going to, it's not on a cliff or anything like that, but we're eliminating things that maybe could encumber your fee simple ownership, is which is what you're entitled to. Do when you call a title person and open up a title order, we do what's called an examination of title, and that examination looks at public record. So when it comes to real property,
So real
any
quick here. When we're talking
yeah,
title, we're talking title to the home that someone's purchasing. Because
yes,
typically the title is listed in XYZ person's name who has a mortgage on it or has ownership to it.
yes,
Okay. So title just means the person who actually truly owns the property with some kind of legal description of what said property is.
exactly. And they can't have title to that property unless it is transferred to them via deed and it's notarized and recorded with the county recorder's office that that property resides in. So somebody may have a piece of paper and say, no, I have title to this property, but if it's not properly notarized and recorded and indexed properly at the county, they're not the record owner of the property.
So they're not on title if that were the case. And we know in Utah,
Exactly.
in Utah, obviously we can do loans in individuals' names. It's not a joint property state. It doesn't have to be, husband, wife, or so on and so forth. So title here in Utah is obviously pretty important because someone could be on title that's not on a loan, but they have say over what happens on the transaction.
Exactly.
So you want clear title.
You definitely want clear title. You don't want any
No
liens or
clouds, no
encumbrances.
encumbrances, no
No,
nothing.
no, no clouds.
We want
Let's get
everything
these.
just perfect.
It's called when
It's going from seller X to buyer Y, and you are the instrument in between that's going to research anything that's necessary. And of course, I keep putting my hands up, which is just annoying. But you're researching what's going on with the current title for someone to buy a house that's actually going to be, or real property. It doesn't matter if it's a house or not. Real property, to
Nope.
make sure that there's no liens or hidden things out there.
Yeah, when we talk about examining title, I said we examine everything of record from, court proceedings to county records, but we also try to identify off-record risks if we can, and that would be more like a forged document or somebody who maybe transferred title that shouldn't have, that maybe they were incapacitated at the time. So there are certain things that are hidden that we can uncover. The importance of a title insurance policy is if you, Mr. Seller, give the property to a new homeowner, the buyer, by general warranty deed, which is most of the transactions in Utah are transferred by general warranty deed. You're warranting what's called marketable title to the new homeowner. And marketable title is fee simple ownership, meaning it's free and clear of any liens of encumbrances. You had the right to transfer that over, and they could, the very next day after the seller transfers it into the buyer's name, the buyer would be able to transfer clear title to a new homeowner or a new buyer if they chose to do so.
Interesting. So, yeah, that's interesting. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of crazy things that have happened with title. Do you have any crazy examples of something like that? I mean, I hate to put you on the spot like that, but I mean, you've done this a long time. You've seen everything.
I know. Well, okay, let's talk about dead people in title.
Okay, let's do that. You can't get a signature from them because they're already gone.
You can't. No, and sometimes people do die and they own property, and the way they're vested is very important. Like you said, in Utah, it could be, Jess Goodman and Craig Steele, which would be deemed as joint tenancy, meaning if I were to pass on my portion of that title would transfer directly over to you, Craig. But if I were entitled as Jess Goodman and Craig Steele as tenants in common, that means that my heirs, once I pass, would be able to take on that 50%. It's deemed 50-50 unless it's specified otherwise, that ownership in the property.
Interesting. So somebody dies and they've got, it's joint tenancy. No, you said joint, what'd you call it?
Joint tenancy. Well, if it's just you and me as individuals, vested is a key word, which is how we've taken title. That would be deemed joint tenancy, which gives you the full rights of survivorship if I were to pass on, which I think is really important for people to know. But
and the other one was
tenants in common.
Tenants in common.
Yes.
And I know that there's a lot more to that. There's other vested type of things for title as well.
Yeah.
We have to study that when we take a real estate exam or mortgage exam, but 99% of the time it's really just joint tenants, is it not?
It really is. I mean, it's partners, spouses for whatnot, just entitled and owning that property together. But, you might have two LLCs that might want to own it, or just two partners. If you and I were just business partners and we wanted to buy some investment properties, and we would want to clarify what type of tenancy that is, right, so our heirs are taken care of.
Because then those heirs all of a sudden pop and say, hold on.
They do.
I get half of that. You don't get it all yourself.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So let me ask you this. I always get this question. Do I really need title insurance?
Well, for the very reason I just said, and it's both for buyer and for seller. The seller in Utah, per the real estate purchase contract that the Utah Association of Realtors created, they pay for a title insurance policy on behalf of the buyer. And we will have sellers in closing say, "Why am I doing this? Why am I paying for this? It's their policy." Well, that title policy, in a sense, protects the seller. The reason why is when they do a general warranty deed and warrant over certain things, like I just talked about, marketable title to that buyer, they're giving them. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there.
It's
they're
okay.
they're they're giving them, their fee simple ownership, the right to convey, and they're saying this property is free and clear. Here you go. I've just given you this property. Well, if there's a defect that pops up, who's the buyer going to call first besides the realtor? The
Well,
seller.
they're probably going to call the seller and say, "Hey, there's this lien or something popped up here. I can't sell my house. What the heck's going on?"
Yeah,
You're
what's
saying
going
the
on?
title policy that the seller had issued at conveyance of that title protects that seller from anything like that.
It does. It protects the seller from having to go to court and pay for attorney's fees and whatnot. They can actually say, "Oh, well, we pay for that title policy. Call the insurance company," and they take care of it from there. Probably never have to talk to the seller again unless it's something that the seller might have done
Right.
on
Misdeed
their own.
or showed
Hmm.
something that wasn't necessarily. So speaking of that, so obviously they're issuing title policy for the buyer themselves to show that it's free title, free and clear. I'm sure you've had instances where something did pop up, the seller's no longer involved. Is that where portions of the title insurance comes into play for litigation, for settlement, for those type of things?
Absolutely. I mean, once you have a title policy, and as long, there's coverages, just like any other insurance policy,
Right.
the coverages are either, you've got to pay a deductible or something, along those lines. But you put in, file a claim with the insurance company. They, by law, have to act on that, investigate that claim, and pay out any claims if there is such. Um,
Interesting.
you know, I think the biggest one you see is maybe a house. That was built on a right of way, like a city right of way, and the city can't get to that right of way. And so, thank goodness there's title insurance policy in place because that homeowner or building owner, whoever it may be, can go to the title company and say, "Hey, my property was built here, and there's coverage for that." And they'll either make whole, to get the right of way moved, or they could possibly be on the hook for a full tear down and a rebuild. So it
Wow.
just depends on what the circumstances were during the time of the examination.
Well, let's just be honest. Whether it's health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, title insurance, nobody likes insurance.
Nobody
I mean,
likes
we don't.
insurance companies.
But it
No,
is a necessary evil that we all basically live with on a regular basis because heaven forbid you get sick and you don't have medical insurance. Or, life insurance is designed to obviously take care of the heirs or the people after you. Title insurance is just a sound, pretty dang inexpensive option to make sure that there is clear title to real property, which typically is somebody's largest asset that they do own.
yeah, it's the
And,
the
and,
biggest
and look at it
purchase
this
of
way.
somebody's life.
So a premium on $1 million home, 2,700 bucks. Is that?
Oh my goodness, you put me on the spot. I don't have the rate sheet up.
And I'm not going to make you do that. But let's say it's a $2,700 premium. That is pretty damn cheap insurance for $1 million investment.
Yep. And it's one time for as long
Yeah, it's
as
one time.
them or their heirs own the property. So
Unlike your
yeah, they
medical insurance that you're paying on a weekly, monthly basis.
exactly, or your automobile insurance or whatever it may be. It doesn't renew, and it's that coverage isn't in effect as long as them or their heirs. So that's a big thing, is if they were to pass on and that automatically reverts to an heir, they're still covered by that homeowner's policy as well.
Gotcha. Well, let's move on from the actual policy and title and the reason for it being. Um,
Okay.
in every transaction, obviously, real estate, mortgage, obviously, one can't be without the other typically. Um, we obviously partner with, not necessarily partner, we always work with title agencies to make sure and do the closing. Um, and that's always a good thing because all title escrow agents do all day long is sit in, well, not everything, obviously there's much more than they do, but my apologies for saying it that way, that's not what I meant. What I mean
Okay.
is they actually meet with the clients, typically the realtor, the lender, the clients are all there together, to consummate this transaction. And
Hmm.
the title agent is there to make sure that everybody understands the documents, understands the purpose of the title insurance, goes through a settlement statement.
Hmm.
I mean, truly, I mean, sure, I could probably do it at my house and just get some notary to come over and sign the documents and stuff like that. But it is much more professional and much nicer to be able to meet at a nice office at a closing table and actually consummate the transaction where the buyer, the agent, the lender, they're all together and they're talking about it. Um, Question for you: other states, I know they require the same title company to be the title company on the purchase and the sell, the purchase and the buy side, the sell
Yes.
and the buy side. Why is it
Hmm.
different in Utah?
I don't know. It started, I want to say, in about 1994, and they our premiums are set as such that, so in a different state like Idaho, they have simultaneous issue policies, meaning that the buyer and the seller close at the same title company, but since there's already a search done, that buyer may only pay $75 for a lender's policy versus what the seller pays. Their premiums are a lot high on the other end, though, so it kind of all balances out. If it didn't, I think that would have changed a long time ago. But so, in a sense, the seller's paying for that owner's policy, the buyer's paying for a lender's policy on behalf of the lender, and they can close at separate title agencies, because that's what we are, title agencies. And there's a handful of underwriters that these agencies write on that paper. And some of the time it's the same underwriter. So
That's
um,
interesting. So would it be
split closings are
better? Would
interesting.
you like it better if it was all in one, where the buy side, the sell side is all meeting? I mean, they never meet at the table, obviously, all together typically, because that's just a
Anyway,
recipe for
yeah,
disaster. But
yeah.
would you like it if it was like that?
You know what? Some people have really strong opinions. I don't. I think we all work really well together as an industry. I think there's some positives. One is checks and balances. When we do a title cert, both companies examine title, and then we exchange that examination with each other. And we can sometimes catch mistakes for each other, which is really nice. And I think if there's just one set of eyes looking at the transaction, I think there could be more claims because you don't have a second set of eyes looking at that. So I think that's a
That's a good
positive.
point.
Yeah.
That is a really
So
good point.
back before there was online recording and wire transfers, it made it a
Back
little
when you
bit more
had to take the
difficult.
wagon out to the outlying county and pull the paper through the little microfiche and find out who's actually on title. You mean that type of stuff?
That type of stuff, and believe it or not, I was around for that. So yeah, that made
There's
it, that
some
posed a
counties in
little
some
bit.
states that still exist like that, and sometimes it's really painful.
It is. It is. So I think the only the negative, so positives, catching each other's mistakes, working well together. We're all out for the same thing. We are a neutral third party, so just because a seller closes at my title company and a buyer closes at XYZ title, it doesn't mean we're against each other. We are neutral to the transaction. We're just issuing a policy. We're making sure documents are recorded and money is dispersed where it needs to go. But I think a misconception would be is where your policy is coming from. When a seller closes, I mean, they're done. They pay for their title insurance policy and they're done. But that policy is to insure the buyer who's closing an XYZ title. And so if the buyer has, some trouble pop up, they may call XYZ title, and XYZ title is going to tell them, oh, we insured your lender, not you, and there might be a problem there. So I think it's really important when you're closing, when you're on the buyer side, that you need to let the buyer know who their policy is coming from, because it may be a totally different underwriter too. So I think that's the only confusion.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, obviously, title, as we've established, title insurance is important. Let's touch on just another topic here, real quick. Also, a lot of times people have a trust
Mm.
on their property. They've the XYZ and so trust for the family of X. Um, can title insurance be done on those type of things, or do I need to give you the trust so that you can look through it and then maybe take it out of the trust, do the transaction, and put it back in the trust? How does that work?
We are fine. If as long as if it's vested in a trust, an LLC, any type of entity, that it may be, we do ask for documentation, and the only reason why we ask for the documentation, meaning either the articles from the LLC, who we have to see who the managing members are that can sign on behalf of that. Same with the trust. It may be a family trust. Mom and dad may be trustees of that trust, and maybe dad has passed away, and that trust could spell out, and we've seen it where when dad passes away, they pass on the trustees of that trust to somebody totally different than the mom. I've seen that where dad didn't want the mom to be able to sign for anything if he passed away, and they passed it on to the adult male children in the family. So the only reason why we don't want to see who gets what or read the nitty gritty details of a will and a trust, or see who's managing what thing. We don't go gossip it. Well, we do it sometimes in the back room, but we want to see who has the authority to sign. The reason why is if the wrong person signs, then there's a cloud on title, then there's a
Right,
claim. So we're
right.
just looking at it to make sure that it's transferred properly, but we have no problem how it's vested.
I always find it interesting that the person with the trust, they're like, "Oh, you don't need to see that information. That has nothing to do with this. We're just doing a mortgage. You don't need to see my trust." And
We
just
don't need
like
to
you just
see
said, look, we're not looking for who, why, what, when, or how, or who gets what, or this, that, and the other. It's literally legal purposes of who's authorized to sign and
it.
why.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and just like in mortgage or real estate, look, we're not the police. We're not the, somebody that's, tattling on anybody for anything. I mean, obviously we want to do everything ethically. But
Yes.
yeah, we're not digging into those nitty gritty things just to, talk about it. It's a legal purpose that we're obviously getting those documents to make sure that title isn't clouded and there's no encumbrances that aren't supposed to be there.
Can I be a title geek for a minute, Craig, and talk about
Please.
that? So there's a term called the chain of title, and the chain of title is ownership. And how I explain it to sellers, buyers, even realtors and lenders in the industry is the chain of title is telling the story of title. So if somebody were to pass away in title, if it's like I said, Jess Goodman and Craig Steele, and I were to pass on, a title company would require a death certificate for that person, for me. And then we would have you, Craig, sign an affidavit that yes, Jessica is deceased. And that is recorded, that affidavit, at the county recorder's office. And people do have a hard time with that one too. I mean, death is already, an emotional
Yeah, it is an
thing. And then
emotional thing.
you bring it back up in title, but we've got to tell the story of what happened, because we need to know why didn't Jessica sign this warranty deed over to Johnny Buyer when he purchased that property? Why was it only Craig when Craig and Jessica were in title? So that's why it's so important for us to see. We have to record things in the right manner and in the right order, and tell the story, so whoever takes on that title next will know what that story is, and there's no clouds. I'm a title geek that way. I love to talk chain
Well,
of
I mean
title.
that explanation is really awesome, and obviously that's important. I mean, at the end of the day, the whole purpose of this is to educate, motivate, inspire people on all things real estate, and the fact that you've spent the last 24 minutes talking about title, which Look, nobody wakes up in the morning saying, "Man, I want to understand title insurance." It's awesome
Exactly.
that you're able and willing and have the subject matter expertise to walk through this, even though you didn't know the premiums. Speaking of premiums, it
I think I
aren't
should know
aren't title premiums kind of set, or closing costs or whatnot for title? Aren't they kind of set on an annual basis by the insurance board? I mean, I think y'all get
that.
together and decide what you're going to charge, right? Isn't that how that
Well,
works?
we can't. That would be antitrust, so we can't get together and see what everybody's charging.
Gotcha.
But they're within dollars and cents. It's called a price per thousand, is how they come up with that, and they don't file them every year. Our escrow fees. So there's two different. I guess to rewind, there's two different fees you're paying in closing. You're paying for a title insurance premium, which is set by the underwriter, and it's set at a price per thousand, and they're really just taking what does it cost to do an examination of title and eliminate that risk is really where that charge comes from. And I should know what it is on $1 million property, but it's around, yeah, let's just say $2,700, $3,000, something like that. And then the buyer and the seller both pay for an escrow fee, or a settlement or closing fee.
Gotcha.
Different title agencies call it different things, different softwares, whatever, for what it may be. And that's more for doing the work on the back end, to that escrow settlement agent. Preparing the settlement statement, preparing the documents, making sure they're recorded and whatnot. And that's typically between $400 to $600, depending on the transaction, buyer, seller. And so and it's, like I said, called an escrow fee or a settlement fee. And those are not filed anywhere, and it's at our discretion to charge. We do comply with RESPA, so we can't do a closing for free, so we can't not charge anything. But those fees are typically set between $400 and $600, depending on the transaction, or higher on a commercial deal, possibly.
Yeah. Well, Jess, I mean, this has been very interesting. I've been in the business a long time. You've been in the business a long time. It's always interesting. It's always neat to kind of look over the fence at the other side. I mean, obviously, all of this is important to make transactions work. In any real estate or mortgage transaction, there's at least 30 hands that are involved in it to get these things to happen, from processing, title, appraisal, underwriters, loan officer assistant, on your side, the assistant, the underwriter for the title, the escrow agent. I mean, there's so many things that are in the mix of a real estate and mortgage transaction. I'm just surprised most of the time of how smooth the transactions go with so many people involved.
Right? We're ducks. We're just paddling, paddling, paddling underwater, but
I'm
just
getting the
looks like
visual, the
we're
little
all.
paddling. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Jess, what other things would you actually want to say to and this channel is educational. It's for, whether it's the first time home buyer, whether it's a person wanting to move up, whether it's someone wanting to sell their house, whether it's someone, that's nearing, they want to do a reverse mortgage or something like that. This channel is for all things real estate and mortgage. Is there anything else that you would say to a client to make them aware of what title insurance is and why it's important?
Um, I think I feel like I've covered it. I think it's important that you work with a good title professional, and I think for the most part, our industry has everybody's on the up and up. We are licensed. Um, Doing your due diligence, you have a right to choose who represents you. And
Right.
well, I shouldn't say represent, that's not the word. You have a right to choose that title insurance person who's going to issue your policy, and read your title insurance commitment and ask questions.
Oh, there's one other thing that I also want to say. Anytime you do a mortgage, there is a deed that's actually paid off, and paperwork is typically sent out to the previous person as a deed that's been paid off. I've
Yes.
received
We can,
multiple of those. What do you suggest a client does with those? Put it in the filing cabinet, or just look at it and go, "Oh, what's this?" and throw it away?
Well, when you get your title insurance policy, you're going to get your policy, and then you're going to get what's called the warranty deed, and that is the deed that's recorded at the county, that you will have, but it is recorded, so it's an easy deed. It's an easy thing to find to prove you're entitled to the property. But if it's been recorded properly, then you're fine. But I would definitely keep it in a fireproof safe or
Yeah.
something. Um,
Keep it safe.
some if you're going to refinance, sometimes it's the title company that is facilitating that and issuing a policy to the lender, um, to get a reissue rate. Some title insurance companies require that you surrender that old title policy. Um, that's written in a lot of their guidelines.
Interesting.
So I would just make sure they're in a fireproof safe. But if it's recorded at the county, it's easy to find. And most of the time, you're not going to need an original deed.
Yeah. And bottom line, whatever the title company gives you, make sure that you put it in some kind of a fireproof safe and keep the document. Because 9 times out of 10 on a refinance, for example, I'm going to ask you for your mortgage statement. I'm going to ask you maybe possibly even for your settlement statement when you originally did your loan. It's not a bad thing to have that documentation ready and necessary to help facilitate the new transaction.
And a lot of title agencies are not keeping the entire closing package anymore. I think back in the day, everybody did, but storage costs and uh, personal information, by the risk of getting hacked, they don't want to be on the hook for that. So it is important. I think you should save your note to make sure that you can give that to your lender when you want to refinance, and keep those important documents, because a lot of title agencies don't keep those anymore.
Got it. Well, Jess, you've been a wealth of knowledge, and it's always fun to talk to you. It's always fun to see you.
Thanks, Craig.
I mean, obviously, once again, people that are, interested in real estate and mortgage, this channel is specifically designed for educating you, whether it's on the real estate side, the mortgage side, whether it's the title side. Subscribe, share with your friends. It's not something that we're going to be spamming you with. It's actually when we post a video, it'll give you a notification that there's a video. If you so desire to go in and learn more about title, learn more about real estate, learn more about mortgage, different programs, it's there to actually be a library of good information for you. I'm Craig Still with Ram Real Estate and Mortgage. We've got Jess Goodman. Jess, thank you so much for being here today as the title expert that we wanted to talk to.
Thank you so much, Craig. I look forward to hopefully doing another one to educate people. I love it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks.